start recording here. All right, so good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Jyoti Patel. And today Copperwind has asked me to speak to you all about the new normal that we live in during this pandemic, COVID-19. And so many of us are experiencing fear and uncertainty, and it's leading to anxiety. And so my topic today is, how do we overcome stress and anxiety during this time? And how do we use community as a way to heal? So fear, first of all, is a very normal phenomenon. We all experience fear, and fear helps us survive. As humans, we've evolved because we've been able to survive. And when we experience something fearful, such as imminent danger to our well-being or the well-being of our loved ones, our body has a natural response. We call that fear. Now, fear, most people think is a thought process, but it's actually in the body. And we experience fear first from the body. We see, hear, smell, taste, or touch something. We receive information from the outside. We take that information into our bodies, and it causes a signal to go from our bodies to our brain. So fear is first experienced in the body. And then it sends a message up to the brain, the thinking part of our brain, to make us now put it into context of what we've experienced in the past. So if you see something that makes you afraid, you see somebody getting sick, and that reminds you of someone else that may have suffered illness, immediately your fight or flight response kicks in. That's the part of the brain that makes us vigilant, that makes us hyper-aroused, that makes us ready to fight or flight. And within seconds of you receiving that information to your brain, it causes a flood of stress hormones all the way into the body. Cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine starts to supercharge the body. Your pupils dilate, your mouth gets dry, your neck gets tense, your heart starts pounding, your breath becomes shallow, your stomach might get queasy, your muscles get tense, your hands get cold and clammy. We've all experienced this sensation somewhere in our lives, and it has helped us get away from potential threats. But when we get stuck day after day, week after week, or month after month in a state of perpetual fight or flight or chronic stress, the system starts to break down. And we start to find coping behaviors to help us navigate through this stress. We might take in things that make us feel better, comfort food, sugar. We might find ourselves reaching for that extra glass of wine. We might get ourselves addicted to other things such as gambling or substances. So our bodies are suffering when we get stuck in fight or flight. Okay, and anxiety is just a symptom of that. But what we also manifest is coping behaviors. And sometimes these coping behaviors are not healthy. So I'm also going to talk about what we could do to help our bodies heal from this chronic perpetual fight or flight. So going on with that, when we get stuck in fight or flight, when our bodies are in constant state of survival, two things happen. The mind goes into fight or flight, causing us to become hyper-aroused, hyper-stimulated, leading to insomnia, leading for us to go out and search for more information, scrolling the internet, watching the news cycles, can't get enough information. We are seeking information because we want to make sure that we're going to be okay. And so this constant need to look for information has got us all obsessed with online technology. And unfortunately, instead of making us feel better, we've got caught up further in this vortex of fight or flight because we're not receiving any information that's making us feel better. So we're seeking more information. It's causing more hypervigilance, more hyperarousal, more insomnia, more mood changes, anxiety, depression, sadness, and we get caught up in the storm of mental fight or flight. Not only does that happen in our minds, but it also happens in our bodies. So when we experience fight or flight and our heart rate goes up and our blood pressure goes up, then it increases our risk for having a heart attack or stroke. It causes hypertension, damage to our kidneys. It dysregulates our blood sugar, so we become more likely to become diabetic or have problems regulating our blood sugar. It affects our immune system because when we are in fight or flight, our body is gearing up for an external threat. So it shuts off energy and resources to the immune system that are fighting internal threats. Unfortunately, in this case, when we need our immune systems to be robust, we are basically handicapped when we're stressed because it shuts off our immune system. So our B cells and our T cells and our immune barriers break down, and we're more likely to get sick. The other thing that shuts down is our gastrointestinal tract. So our GI tract shuts down when we are faced with an external threat. So if you're running from the bear, the last thing you need is to sit down and have a nice meal or to go to the bathroom, right? So your body basically shuts down all unnecessary, non-essential processes, and the gastrointestinal tract shuts down during times of stress, which might explain why some of us may experience indigestion or acid reflux or constipation or diarrhea or gas or bloating or increased appetite or decreased appetite, because during times of stress, our gastrointestinal system is shut down. Hormones also shut down during times of stress. So a lot of times people will come to me and say, I'm so tired, my mind is racing and I want to rest, but my body is so fatigued and I'm achy all over. Remember, this is also a phenomenon of us getting stuck in fight or flight. The body will actually shut down repair mechanisms. Right? Repairing cells and damaged tissue takes a lot of energy. And if you're imminently going to die, your body is not going to allocate resources to repairing your musculoskeletal system or make you more likely to have hormones to reproduce or to have energy. It's actually going to take energy away from your hormonal tracts and your musculoskeletal system. So now it must make sense that when we get stuck in fight or flight, when we get stuck in this vortex of stress, not only becomes a problem for our mind, causing mental disorders, causing anxiety and depression and agitation and anger and disconnection, but it also causes physical problems with heart attacks and stroke and hypertension and gastrointestinal symptoms and problems with our joints and pain and fatigue and hormones. So now I know we're talking about COVID-19 and the stress that we're experiencing from it, but you can extrapolate this information to stress in your life from any other source. So if we get stuck in fight or flight, this is what's happening. And in medicine, we doctors will typically treat the blood pressure or give you cholesterol lowering pills, or we'll give you some other ailment for your medication for your gastrointestinal symptoms, for your constipation or your diarrhea. But we fail you in not explaining the root cause of why the system is breaking down in the first place. And if you suffer from insomnia or if you suffer from anxiety, we in traditional medicine will give you pills to numb your symptoms, to fix them downstream. But we rarely ever talk about the upstream reason for why this happens in the first place. All right, so again, if you ladies have any questions, please don't hesitate to add a chat in the chat box, or if you feel brave enough to unmute, feel free to add a comment or a question. So why is this so important to us? Because not only do we get caught up in fight or flight, we become addicted to it. We become addicted to the adrenaline that we get when we scroll on the internet, when we watch that news cycle, when we see something negative, when we get caught up in a storyline. That's very addictive. And adrenaline is actually the gateway drug to all other coping behaviors. And just as when you withdraw from any other substance, what happens when people have to slow down, like we have to do right now? When people are trying to disconnect from more information and they're having to sit idle in silence with themselves, it becomes very uncomfortable. People become bored, become agitated. They are seeking something to keep them stimulated. That too is a sign of fight or flight. When we're unable to untether from that adrenaline, when we find ourselves dipping, we will find information or activities to get us surged back up again. That maladaptive behavior of watching television till late at night, the maladaptive behavior of seeking substances to make us feel better. All of these things are linked to this process we call fight or flight. Okay, so I promised you that we would talk about some of the solutions. So I wanted to describe what the problem was and how the mind and the body get disconnected and get stuck in fight or flight. And that leads us to having downstream symptoms of mood disorders and physical problems. Now, in order to solve this issue, we need to bring our attention back to 5 basic things that are going to give us the opportunity to repair the damage caused by all these stress hormones in our body. So I talked about how fear is first felt in the body. It's felt through what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, and what we touch. So if we're going to change the information that our body is receiving, we have to change our environment, right? So if all you watch is news cycles all day and the internet all day, that's the information your body is receiving, and it's going to respond accordingly. So if you want to change the response, you have to change the input of data, the input of information from those 5 things: what you see, what you hear, what you taste, touch, smell. So make sure you're changing your environment. How do I recommend doing that? So if you can, make sure every morning you get 15 minutes of sunlight. Sunlight is information. It comes through your pupils, it comes through your skin. It tells the body that you are healthy and well. It gives you a sense of pleasure. Being outside, having the wind, having the air touch your skin, breathing in, smelling in the outside aromas, listening to the birds, right? These are things that you can do. If you don't want to go outside, cultivate this environment inside your home, the people that you surround yourself with, the information your eyes are seeing, your ears are hearing, the stuff that you're touching, people that you're touching, animals that you're touching. All of that conveys information to your body that you are safe, that you are well, and that you are present. And when you connect to those 5 senses, you're changing the information coming into the body, and you'll see a dramatic difference in your symptoms. Second is your breath. Your breath is tethered to your vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is that autonomic nervous system, that web of neurons that are sending signals from the body to the brain. And when you cultivate a breath practice, where you take in a deep breath, hold it at the top, and then exhale out. And then you cultivate another breath where you take a deep breath in with your diaphragm, holding it, and then exhaling back out. You're actually stimulating the vagus nerve in a way that it is actually signaling the brain, the amygdala, the emotional centers of the brain, that all is well in the body. And when the body tells the mind that all is well, then the mind tells the body, go back to work, okay? Your immune system goes back online, your gastrointestinal system goes back online, your cardiovascular system slows down, your respiratory system is improving, your hormonal tracts come back online, your musculoskeletal repair mechanisms come back online. And then when the brain knows that all is well in the body, then it goes to bed. It shuts down. It stops becoming hypervigilant. It stops becoming hyper-aroused. It doesn't have to focus on imminent threat anymore. So it can actually repair itself as well. So if you suffer from memory loss and brain fog and insomnia and mood changes, these are all phenomena of the downstream effect of fight or flight. And if you go upstream, first starting with the body, the information that you put in, the 5 senses, what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, what you touch, changing that changes the information going into the body. Second is if you cultivate the practice of breathing with your diaphragm in a rhythmic fashion, bringing attention to it without forcing the breath, you'll find that you'll actually be able to then shut down the fight or flight sequence. And then all those stress hormones in the body will go down, and your body will actually feel more relaxed. The third thing that you have to pay attention to is the mind. The mind has a way of wandering away. It has so many things it has to process, so many things it has to look at, so much information that it needs to get. It's constantly seeking information that's going to allow it to feel safe. And it's seeking this information outside of the body. So the third thing that I'd like you to do is to spend some time disconnecting from getting more information from the outside and turning your attention inward to see what information you already have to process inside. So there's so much information up in here, and we just don't give our minds enough time to settle, to sit with our thoughts, to sit with our emotions. So I invite you to take 5 minutes. If you can get up to 30, that would be lovely. But 5 minutes every day where you sit in a quiet place, you close your eyes, you bring attention inward to your thoughts and your emotions, like you're watching a movie, just being an observer of your thoughts, not trying to judge or create a framework of your thoughts, just noticing where they're coming from, maybe even labeling them. There's me planning for tomorrow. There's me worrying about what just happened yesterday. That's me going over that same piece of information again. So once you sit with your thoughts and you give yourself permission to be with your thoughts and your emotions, it allows the body to then get used to them and then put them away. Now you can go outside into the world and get more information. Okay? And then you can seek more information. But then, just like anything else, you want to debrief that information. So you sit, close the outside world, bring yourself inside, pay attention with your eyes closed if that makes you comfortable, and allowing those thoughts to come in like clouds floating above you, naming them if it seems to help, and then letting them go. So acknowledge, release. Acknowledge that thought and emotion, release it. If you start with 5 minutes every day, I promise you, you will feel so much more relaxed and restful. And then you can increase your practice from 5 to 10 to 15 to 30, if that is in your practice. Some people will call this meditation. Some people will call it self-reflection. Some people like to incorporate prayer with this or gratitude exercises. Any of these tools that I'm teaching you today is game. Remember that the body is receiving information from the outside. And if you can change the information that you're sending inward, then that's going to change the body's response. But if you already have all this mental information filled up in here, then take a minute to turn inward, sort that information, put it away, and then get more information. In addition to the 5 senses, the breath work, and the meditation practice, what's also important is nutrition. And you've heard me talk about this before, but food is information. Just like what you see is information, what you put in your mouth is information as well. That food will break down into tiny, tiny chemicals. And these chemicals will attach to the cell's receptor. That's the surface of the cell. These chemicals we call food attaches themselves to the surface of the receptor. It turns the lock and key, allowing this chemical to enter inside the cell. Now, that food chemical, whether it's the breakfast you ate or the dinner you ate last night, has an impact on the cell's DNA. It either turns on genes that causes inflammation and a distress signal, right? Or it turns on information, it turns on the DNA and sends out information from the cell that causes repair and health and healing. So remember that food is information, and that information is a choice. So when we indulge in sugar, highly refined grains, processed food, deep fried foods, junk food, fast food, foods that are not prepared very well, that are loaded with pesticides, chemicals, dyes, preservatives, these chemicals get into the body and they act as a signal on the cell to increase damage to the cell and inflammation. Now, during times of stress, you will have one more layer of stress in the body if all you're doing is consuming alcohol and sugar and junk food. You're actually adding more fuel to the fire, causing more distress inside the body, elevating that distress SOS signal from the body to the brain. So what can you do instead? You can choose food differently. Think of food as medicine. And if you're suffering from anxiety, or insomnia, or agitation, there are certain foods that will actually go into the cell and turn those emotions off, or at least turn the volume down on them. Okay? We know that omega-3 fats, like from cold water fish and seeds and nuts, are a great way to decrease inflammation in the body. And so by turning down inflammation in the body can rest more and sleep better. Cutting out things like caffeine, cutting out things like alcohol, staying away from highly refined baked goods, fried food, sugary foods. I talked about that already. Soda is another one. And then eating a lot of restaurant or prepared foods or foods that are already produced in a factory, they're going to cause more inflammation. So omega-3s are a good alternative to that. Good fats also keep you full for a long period of time. When we eat sugar, it causes a rush in our blood sugar, and then it causes a drop in our blood sugar, which makes us hungry again. So then we eat something more that's sugary, that causes again a rise in the blood sugar and causes us to crash again. So we have this energy, mood, fatigue that's happening all throughout the day. And that's because of that sugar up and down. So keeping your blood sugar stable will keep your anxiety levels low. Eating high fiber foods will do that. Remember that B vitamins are really good for mood. They help us make serotonin and dopamine, which are neurotransmitters that make us feel calm. So eat more things that are like avocados and leafy greens and asparagus that are loaded in B6 and B9, and increase your B12 during times of stress. Vitamin C also helps with stress because it helps us balance out our adrenal glands. So making sure you're getting plenty of vitamin C and minerals like zinc, not only good for the immune system, also good for mood. You also want to increase magnesium. Know that a lot of people take magnesium to help them be more relaxed. You can get magnesium in leafy greens like spinach and chard. You can get it in beans, legumes, lentils, seeds, and nuts. So making sure you're eating whole food can help you get these medicines into the cell to help you decrease the downstream symptom, which is anxiety. So I hope all this makes sense. Fermented food. Remember that 90% of your serotonin, which is your happy hormone, and 50% of your dopamine, which is your reward hormone, is made in your gastrointestinal tract with your gut bacteria. And so if you have bad bacteria in your colon, it might affect your mood. And if you change that bad bacteria to good bacteria, it might actually improve your mood. And there's lots of studies to actually support that claim. So how do you change the bacteria in your colon? Well, you want to eat fermented food. Sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, yogurt. Adding in fermented food can help improve the gut microbiome. And you want to eat soluble fiber because fiber helps build that good bacteria. Remember that good bacteria is helping you make serotonin and dopamine, which is helping you with your mood. So you want to definitely increase that. So food is an important, essential part of it. All right, so we talked about the five senses. We talked about connecting to your breath. We talked about a meditation or an inward practice to sort information. We talked about food as medicine, exercise. It goes without saying that exercise is a grade A recommendation for basically every health problem, but most definitely for mood disorders. So if you have a little bit of anxiety, if you feel a little bit more depressed about the situation that we're going through right now, or any other time in your life, definitely embrace the idea of exercise. Physiologically, movement is information as well. And when you move your joints and you move your muscles, it releases endorphins that help us mitigate stress. So get at least 30 minutes to an hour of exercise, whether it's a fun dance class that you're doing online, whether it's a Tai Chi practice or a yoga practice or a walk around the neighborhood, or if you have equipment in your home and that's what you want to do, just start somewhere. I know most people have the time now to start an exercise program. So get inspiration from other people, talk to your friends and your family about what they might be doing, maybe start a group with them that you can Skype together and work out together once a day, or just report it to someone. Once we tell someone that we're working out, it kind of makes us commit to it. But exercise is a big component. So lack of sleep increases mood disorders. I don't have to prove it. People know that, right? But it's in many studies that sleep deprivation is the best way to torture someone. Because if we don't sleep, the brain doesn't allow the body to clean itself out or itself. And the brain is not thinking properly. Mood and agitation get worse. The parts of the brain that regulate sleep get damaged. So then it becomes a vicious cycle where you can't sleep. So sleep is really important if you're trying to decrease your anxiety levels. How do you do that? One, want to take out substances that might be affecting your sleep. Caffeine and alcohol and chocolate and sugary foods and processed foods or inflammatory foods will cause the body to stay hyper-aroused and hypervigilant. So you want to take those things out. You also want to stop looking at the news or social media at least an hour before bed. You want to turn off the blue light that turns off our melatonin. So you want to dim your lights in your home, turn off your technology because it reverses the production of melatonin in the brain. You want to get in a cool room. Turning down the temperature in your room will actually help you sleep better. Get into a comfortable bed. Replace your bedding and mattress if they're not comfortable, because it's really important to be comfortable when you're sleeping at night. Anything that causes you distractions, lights in the room, your phone, your alarm clock, things like that can get in the way. You may want to change that around so that you're not affected by it. You may want to embrace a breath practice or meditation practice at night. If you wake up in the middle of the night, don't rush to turn on the light or hit the refrigerator or turn on your phone to scroll on the internet. Stay in bed if you can. Try to do a progressive muscle relaxation from your toes to your knees, to your thighs, to your belly, to your shoulders, to your head. Or do some deep belly breathing and count those breaths till you get to 10. And if your mind wanders, bring your mind back to your breath until you're able to get back to sleep. If you absolutely cannot sleep, then you may get out of bed, sit in an armchair, don't turn on the bright lights, maybe just a lamp, and do some light reading until you're able to fall back to sleep. Okay. So there's so many components to helping with your mental mindset. Remember that your wellness is an inside job, right? Your wellness is an inside job. So often we look externally for others to fix those problems. What can you do for my blood pressure or my heart condition or my stomach problems or my mood disorder? And I always tell my patients, I'm here to support and help you for sure. But I really want you to embrace the idea that we're partners in this. And that if you work on your end of things with breath work and 5 senses and meditation practices and controlling the information coming in from your 5 senses, and then working on nutrition, working on exercise routines, working on sleep hygiene, then we can find a good solution. And so part of that comes to the last part of my talk, which is community. The most important part of who we are as a collective, as a global human race, is that we're interconnected to each other. And we're social creatures. We need each other. And right now, we're not able to be right next to each other, but you guys have got a great community at Copperwind. You have such great events. You have resources. You have a wonderful place to gather and wonderful people to get to know. So you're very blessed. So looking at those connections, even during these times, reach out to someone that you may have met at the club. Ask them if they're doing okay. There's so many people out there that are scared, are disconnected, are lonely. So if you are just shooting somebody an email or a text or doing a Skype call with your family, these are ways to connect with others, to let them know that they are seen, heard, and felt. Right? So keeping close to community during these times is the most essential advice that I can give people. Communicate with people, let them know that you are there for them. If there's anything in your practice that you can do to serve others during this time, whether it's helping pack lunches for children that are housebound and they normally get their food at school, whether it's helping homeless, get food served, or you have a program or a church that has something virtual that they allow you to participate in so that you can donate money to a certain cause that can help other people. Anything, check on a neighbor, anything that you could do to help serve other people will give you a sense of well-being. It'll help you find purpose and connection. So it's not just good for the person receiving your love, but it's also good for you because you're giving that love. So giving love to others is a big component of that. Okay. So, all right. So we talked about a lot of things. I just wanted to address some of the questions that people might have about COVID-19. I know that the information is changing every day. I just put out a newsletter today about COVID-19 testing. So if you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to call us and let us know, and we're happy to help in any way we can. There's also questions about supplements or nutrients that are helpful during COVID-19. I do put out a lot of information on my website and newsletter for that. So if there's any questions about that, don't hesitate to ask there as well. All right. So just to summarize today's talk, know that anxiety and fear is normal. Know that we go through it to survive. But when we get stuck in it for a long period of time, it causes breakdown in the mind and in the body. And some of the downstream effects of that can be insomnia, anxiety, depression, agitation, irritability, restlessness. And some of the symptoms in the body can be breakdown of our thinking, of our heart, of our blood pressure, of our blood sugar, our hormones, our gastrointestinal tract, immune system, become more susceptible to chronic disease and illness. In order to stop that process from happening, we've got to reconnect the mind and the body. We need to bring attention to those 5 senses, change the environment, change what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, because that's going to send a signal from the body to the mind that you're in a good place. Use your breath to stimulate the vagus nerve, which turns on the parasympathetic nervous system, turning off fight or flight. Recognizing where in the body you hold stress. Know that the mind, the monkey mind, gets us chasing information, and that's a symptom of fight or flight. And notice when that happens. Notice when you have this urge to pick up your phone and scroll or turn on the television. And then give yourself permission to allocate time to reflect inward and to clear all the information you already have inside. Use food as medicine, use exercise and good sleep habits. Join up with other people to cultivate purpose and connection. Use your community that you have to check in on each other. Use technology right now, but in the future, remember that it's all about connecting with people. So check in on your neighbors, your friends, your relatives, your acquaintances. See if you can provide any service anywhere in the community where it's needed. When we do all of these things, then the fear that we experience sort of takes a back seat, and we become empowered with hope and optimism. And not only does it reflect outward with us being contagious when we're smiling and making eye contact and waving at people, but it also does something on the inside. It heals us so much more. It fixes all those imbalances that are going on inside that we can't see. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully this was helpful. For those who have joined me this morning, if you have any questions and you want to unmute and ask them, please feel free to do so. There's no obligation to interact, but if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate. Okay, well, ladies, you have a great day. Copperwind is going to send this recording to your members. So if you have any more questions for me, please don't hesitate to let me know. I'm here to help. Have a great day.